Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Meghan Elinor. Meghan is a dynamic content creator known for her unfiltered opinions, thought-provoking hot takes, and her ability to spark meaningful dialogue on social media. With a career that spans lifestyle, beauty, and political commentary, Meghan uses platforms like TikTok to engage her audience with a mix of relatable and bold perspectives. Her viral journey began in 2023 when she committed to posting consistently, quickly amassing over 100,000 followers with her unique voice and authentic storytelling. Meghan, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. When I first saw your content, I love it because you're so based with your opinions. You have a lot of hot takes, and I know some people might find it somewhat controversial just because of the climate and everything that's going on right now. But you're somebody who's really stepped into who you actually are, your own persona, your own person.
Who I am, that's a deep question. So I don't I consider myself to be a content creator, but I feel like I'm also a very normal human. Like I have a 9 to 5 job and I had been trying to get into social media for a while in a different realm. I've done the YouTube thing, I've tried the Instagram thing, and quite frankly, as much as I love sorry, I'm hearing people knock on my door. I'm like, who is knocking on my door? As much as I love YouTube, there's a lot of, it's a platform that's changed throughout the past couple of years. So like I've shifted away from it. And Instagram, I think, is just really way too curated for who I am as a person. I think that everything's very filtered over there. And even though, yes, you technically have filters on TikTok, right? You get people's real raw emotions and who they are as a person for the most part. It's pretty hard to filter who you are on TikTok because eventually your personality is going to come out. But I had been doing this social media thing for 5, 6 years. I would do it and I would do it for a solid 3 months. I just gave up because it just wasn't what I was passionate about. I was doing like lifestyle and the beauty thing and all of that. It just wasn't what I was interested in. But at the beginning of 2023, I made a commitment to myself. I was like, you know what? TikTok's blowing up. Everybody's telling me I need to do this. I didn't even, to be truth be told, really watch TikTok until then. All my friends were like, Megan, you need it. You really want to do this. You need to get on it. I was like, TikTok? These are dancing videos on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'll just make a commitment. I'll make one video per day on TikTok because on there you can post anywhere from 1 second upwards of 10 minutes. So for all of 2023, I posted at least one video. Typically it was like 2 to 3 per day. And I saw my content grow from, it was so strange because when you're used to YouTube, you get maybe 30 views on a video when you first start. TikTok, it was like the first 5 videos, you got 30,000 views. Like in a second, I was like, this is insane. How are people, 30,000 people are seeing my content? And then you get hooked. It's almost like an addiction.
Oh, it's like
So I
going to
just,
the casino.
yeah, no,
Uh,
seriously, it is. And when you're somebody who we can get into this later, but I have a pretty addictive personality. So, and I was getting this high almost off of, oh wow, I could actually see this working. So I stuck with it and I went from 0 followers to, I think it was a little over 100 in the course of a year. And you can figure out your way on TikTok. I didn't start posting political content or really opinion-based content. It was really just, a lot of it was the trendy stuff at first until I had a video go viral over my opinion over Starbucks. Starbucks tipping was the topic.
right.
Yeah, and that's my first really introduction to a viral video on TikTok. I've just stuck with it since then.
And what is your opinion on Starbucks tipping?
So it's changed. I'll say that because I got eaten alive in the comment section of that one. But I responded to a video of somebody saying, "Are we tipping at the drive-through in Starbucks?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm not tipping at a drive-through, right?" And I was very hardcore in my belief because at that point I had worked in the restaurant industry for, oh my God, 10 years at that point. I had obviously gone in and out of the restaurant industry for a while. So, as somebody who really had to hustle hard as a waitress and as a bartender and as a runner for a really long time, I was like, I'm not going to really tip people who are giving me a coffee. I was like, if you're handing me a coffee, I just don't, and there's no personal interaction there. You're not really providing me with a long-term service. People didn't like that take. So it went wildly viral. I had like 5 or 10 million views on it in the course of 2 days. I was to say I had only been on the platform for 2 weeks, and it had gotten to the point where I was still working at my previous job, and it had circulated around my office. And I was like, "Oh my god, now these people are gonna think I'm crazy." In my real life, I was getting like actual. I don't know if you can say this the D word on here, but unaliving threats to my actual office. People were trying to dox me at my office, and that's So sorry, I'm dropping it back into how I got into social
Mhm.
media, but that's my stand on tipping. It's changed since then. If I have a really good experience at Starbucks now and somebody's really going out of their way and ask me how my day is and they just seem like a really good chipper person, I'll tip 20%. But I really don't go to Starbucks too much anymore, to be quite frank.
Yeah, me either. I started making it at home. So, how do the people in your real life feel about what you're doing now? Because what I've
Mhm.
noticed is they're supportive in the beginning when you have 0
Yep.
followers. They're like, "Oh my god, you should totally do this." And then you start doing it. And then
Mm.
they get to know you and they realize that you have some hot takes and you have a different personality and
Yeah.
there's literally other parts of you that they just haven't seen, they haven't experienced, they didn't know that existed, they didn't know you were
Mhm.
capable of doing that and that you can actually provide quite a bit of polarity. So, how do
Mhm.
your family and friends feel about it now?
So I'm a pretty honest person with who I am. So the people who I surround myself with, my family members, they know who I am. If anything, I at first had kind of subdued my personality online. So when I really started sharing my hot takes, it wasn't a surprise to the people who I care about my personal life. At work, it was a little different because people are like, "Oh, you present yourself in a very professional manner at work, and here you are talking about Starbucks." And I think that it wasn't a surprise. It genuinely wasn't because I started TikTok when I was 31. I'm 33 now. So I've reached the point in my life where I have a really good core group of friends and family members who necessarily all think alike or agree with the same things, but we respect each other for who we are and the opinions we have because we understand that no matter what your lived experience is, people believe what they believe because of what they've gone through. Yeah, it didn't take a toll on my personal life.
That's good. How do you decide on the topics that you actually want to tackle? Are these things that are just
Mhm.
like going through your mind in the moment? Is it literally a hot take like I just had this thought, feeling, or emotion and I got to create the video right now?
It's a mixture of all of that. So some of the topics are obviously trendy topics because I'm sure that on TikTok, if you have slow views for a while and you have to talk about a hot topic or a trending topic in order to get your views kickstarted again. Because a lot of my content tends to be like more political based recently because of obviously the election and all that. So that stuff I'll just talk about whenever I need to get my views up again. But there are times when I'll have an experience and I'll just talk about it, or there'll be times where I'm driving to work, 'cause most of my content, I actually get my ideas when I'm sitting in my 45-minute commute to my job, and I'll just be thinking about life, and I'll see something, and I'll experience it, and I'll just talk about it once I get to work or get on my lunch break. Some of it is me really having to sit down and plan out what I'm gonna post. It's a mix. 'Cause that's the beauty of TikTok, though, is it's not filtered, it's not curated, it's not something that you have to pre-plan typically, unlike YouTube, right? YouTube, you have to set up certain cameras and angles and edit it to be a certain way. TikTok's not. It's for the most part for my page isn't really like that.
For my page, I've gotten to this place where I'm painted myself into a corner because I do have to structure my content and I create scripts and they
Yeah.
all start with take a walk with me and people really
Mm.
they like the way that sounds. They're like, "Yes, sir.
I love it.
I will take a walk with you." You know? And you'll see that in the comments over and over again. It's just, "Oh, you bring so much peace. This feels so
Yeah.
good. Thank you for the information." And it's that's all well and good, but it's just like I can be equally as polarizing at the same time.
Mhm.
So if I were to create something that's a little bit the opposite of that, I'm not sure that I can actually do that on TikTok right now.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't necessarily think that it's something that I don't recommend it to people who are looking like if you're doing really well, like your content's doing great. So if your content's doing really well, I don't necessarily recommend throwing a hot take out there because we live in a very weird time right now. There's a lot of emotions that are very
You
high
think?
in all aspects. So like people's emotions are all over the place. And if your content is very soothing to people, like that's a positive aspect. If I went down that rally just because of what my personality has been and what my branding has been on TikTok, it would not do as well. So I don't necessarily recommend to people if you feel like you don't want to become controversial, don't do it. It's not worth the hate. You have to have really thick skin to go down that alley.
So it's not it really doesn't matter. Even the content that I create is so
Mhm.
benign overall, but it's just like it evokes such emotion because
Mhm.
it is rooted in your thoughts, feelings, emotions, past traumas, experiences,
Yeah.
difficulties, challenges. And I think for a lot of people, they just haven't gotten to this place where they're capable of challenging their thoughts.
Yeah.
When I create some content, they're like, no, this is absolutely false. This isn't true because of this and this. And it's that's your
Yeah.
personal experience. But if you were to sit back and read some of the books that I suggest or listen to a couple of the podcast episodes that I've also suggested, and they never do, unfortunately. But it's if you would spend an hour with that type of content, then you would begin to realize that it's like, you know what? Actually, what I'm going through right now is something that I need to take care of on the inside of me and actually has
Mhm.
nothing to do with this video that I'm watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big life lesson that a lot of individuals need to unfortunately learn. But the problem with self-awareness, because I'm a big believer in not getting stuck in a victimized mentality, because I was there for a very long time. It's very difficult to come out of. And unfortunately, a lot of people have to hit rock bottom before they get to the point where they're like, I need to change something because I can control my life. And that's very hard for people to do.
Yeah. If anybody's challenged with that right now, by the way, I want to give you guys a book recommendation. And it might not be for everybody, but it's called The Reclaimed Woman by Dr. Kelly Brogan. And if you haven't come across her content yet, she talks a lot about victim consciousness and what that is and what it sounds like and how we get there and how we can evolve away from it and actually use that information to make ourselves feel a little bit more comfortable within our own skin, capable and competent in who we are, and to begin to show up more authentically as who you truly are, which I think is a huge gift if you're willing to do that for yourself, that you end up giving to other people. Because I think for so many of us, we have a wall that's right in front of us, and it's that barrier to connection with even politics is such a great example of that, where we put up this wall. You can't come in because you're on the opposite side, and I'm not going to allow you in because I believe in nothing that you believe in. So we have nothing in common, and therefore you have to go away. You can't exist in my world. And it's just like, no, actually, there's duality in life, and we have to allow those experiences in, but learn how to manage them and deal with them and navigate them and learn to speak to people in a way where we can actually find some common ground. And for a lot of people, when they finally take the time to actually do that, to have just a normalized conversation with somebody who has opposite beliefs, they begin to realize that we're really not all that different at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But so I actually have a question for you because I felt like for a long
No,
time, like, no questions.
that's not how this
Like,
works.
it's just interesting because I feel like for a very long time, everybody, for the most part, the collective group as humans, we were able to coexist for a long time. And it wasn't up until maybe 2013, 2014. I feel like that's when everybody started splitting and you weren't able to sit at the same table as somebody who has these wildly different views. And I'm so curious because it's the only way you can live and learn and grow as a human is if you surround yourself with people who do think differently than you do. So
Yeah.
when did we change as a society to not accept that?
I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of different answers to this, but I
Yeah.
did a video on this recently, and it was the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 that was then updated in 2012, where propaganda was then allowed. It changed the way that we receive information. And we started to create these echo chambers in the places that we lived. And it was rooted in our core belief systems and things that we got through the education system. I'm one of those people that went back to school. It's a little story about me. I'm going to break away and then we'll come back to what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But education was never meant for me. That was not something that was available to me. I was not anywhere near the smartest kid in school. And so when it came time for me to go to school, I had nothing. Everybody else was going off to college and I had been a cook for a while and it was like, I guess I will become a chef. So I went to school. I got an associate's degree in culinary arts. And that was my life for a long time because I didn't have this belief in myself that I was capable of doing anything else. And of course,
Mhm.
nobody else looked at me and said, you know what? You're actually a pretty smart kid. You can do anything that you want to do. And then fast forward years later, I went back to school in 2011 because I started to exercise my FU muscle. And I got to that place where it was like, no, actually, I am intelligent. I am capable. I am smart enough to do this. I actually do have a lot of skills. And it was thanks to things like YouTube and Audible that allowed me to learn and grow in different ways. And now it's so I went to school in 2011, graduated 2013, got my master's degree in 2020 from the University of Chicago, one of the top schools in the nation. So to go from one of the, I don't want to say the dumbest, but not the brightest as a kid to then graduating from one of the top schools in the nation with a master's degree. Just if people aren't inspired by that, like your path is unlimited if you're willing to put in the work and exercise that FU muscle a little bit to figure out who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and the why behind why you're doing all these things. And so you have to build yourself up enough to believe in yourself that you can do these things. And I think for a lot of people, they feel that they've been left behind and that becomes their core story of who they
Yeah.
are as a person.
Yeah.
And then they never grow beyond that. So we get to this place, like we spoke before, where it's like this victim consciousness. I know because I was in it. It's everybody else's fault. This is the reason why I can't do all the things that everybody else is doing.
Mhm.
And then when you start pouring into yourself, you realize, no, actually, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm competent, I'm confident. I can do this. I'm intelligent. I might not understand, I might not be great at math, right? But there's 100 other things that I can do
really well. So then you start honing in on your strengths and learning all that you can in all these different areas where you can improve yourself to become the type of person that you know you're capable of becoming. I think for a lot of people, they don't know who they're capable of becoming and they've never really contemplated it. And so I think they struggle in life and will continue to struggle until they realize that you're actually here to work and put in the work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in all those areas every day. And you have to do it every day. And if you don't, you're going to feel lost and you're going to be frustrated and you are going to blame everything around you for your circumstances. And I know a lot of people are going to come back with, well, that's a privileged position. And something you didn't listen to the beginning of my story where I wasn't the smartest kid and I struggled. And in today's language, they would have said that I had ADHD. They would have come back with a learning disability along with that. But at 46 years old, that language isn't important to me now. But that goes back to some of the echo chambers that we put ourselves in. So I noticed a change when I was in school with the type of language that was being used in school between the years of 2011 to 2013.
Mm.
And you begin to notice that. And there was a shift in the way that we operate, the way that we navigate situations with other people. There was the development of safe spaces and all of these things, which this brings me back to a comment that I saw on one of your posts that said, someone said that if you aren't Gen X, you should be. Welcome to the club. And it cracks me up. And it cracks me up because I am Gen X and it's true. And you'll see all these different spots on TikTok popping up now. It's like there were videos in the 80s. Do you know where your children are? And they would get celebrities at 10 p.m. They would record these spots and it would come on before the news. Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And that's how we grew up. It was like
Yeah.
you come home when the street lights are on. The street lights don't come on till 9 o'clock in the summer. By 10 o'clock, parents should probably be checking to see where their kids are at. And so those were the TV spots before the news came on.
Yeah.
And that was us as a generation. I think that really says a lot about who we are and how we grew up. We were the latchkey kids. We had to take care of ourselves in a lot of different ways. And of course, today we use that language of trauma where everything is trauma, abuse, and neglect. And it's not diminishing anybody's personal experience. Of course, those are your truths, and that's absolutely fine. But it's what you do with that information that really matters. It's the meaning that you give to it, and then how you operate your life with that information moving forward. So it can stop you completely from ever moving forward and living your life wholly and completely, or a lot of people end up using that information to grow, develop, evolve, change, and then they end up going full circle. Now they feel so whole and complete that they're able to help other people
Mhm.
in that process if you're willing to go down that road.
I agree completely. I know I'm not Gen X.
But I know.
I did grow up with very Gen X beliefs in the household. I was also what we call a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my parents gave me a key to let myself back in because they work. My parents were working parents. I think I was like 5 or 6 when they were just once you get home from school, unlock the door,
Mhm.
go inside, figure it out.
Yeah, make snacks and
Don't burn the house down.
yeah. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older brother.
Yeah. Okay. So you weren't taking care of your siblings when you got home.
No, my brother, he's 4 years older than I am, and he is like an actual physical genius. He's very smart. I don't think he ever got tested for Asperger's, but my mom's she used to be a special ed teacher, and she has essentially diagnosed him with Asperger's, so he's on the spectrum. So my brother and I, he doesn't have very many protective skills. That wasn't his forte. And me being the wild child, I had to learn how to protect myself and get through life.
Yeah, I can see you absolutely being the wild child.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
just a little bit.
I'm not quite done with content creation yet. What's the most controversial opinion you've shared? And how did your audience react to that?
Ooh, I have a lot of them, so it's really hard for me to pinpoint one in particular. But honestly, I had posted a video about this earlier today, and it's already a little bit controversial because it's going down the wrong side of TikTok currently. I say
Is
the
it
wrong side of TikTok.
is this the
It-
Hobby Lobby one?
No, which one is the Hobby Lobby? Oh, my experience with Hobby Lobby. No, I love Hobby Lobby, but no, I haven't gone back because those people they just stood way too close to me. But no, I did a video earlier today about self-victimization as well. About my belief is if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you're still living this mindset about you can't, the people are privileged or people are, what is another term? What is the term that I used? That it's due to, oh my goodness, what term did I use? Simply that people are privileged if they're able to live a very positive lifestyle when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. What I said is that I think that's a self-victimized mentality personally, because once you hit 18, like when I hit 18, I was on my own. I did have the privilege, I will say, of having parents to fall back on if I needed to, but that's not my personality. And I would never, ever do that just because my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up. But once I was 18, I was out on my own. And I think that once you hit 18, you are legally an adult. So you can make the decisions to make your life better. I didn't do that until I was in my late 20s, which is why I feel very strong in my conviction of saying that you can get out of a self-victimized mentality, because I've done that. I've been there. And the only person who's holding you back, if you genuinely are an adult, is you. Now, privileges look different to every person, because somebody might consider wealth to be success. Some people might consider family to be success, or friendships to be success, right? Traveling the world could be success to different people or to certain people. It's To me, I'm a big believer over getting out of your own way, or stop preventing yourself from getting to where you want to go. Because the minute that you tell yourself that you can't do something, you're never going to get it. You're never going to get there. And I posted that video earlier today, and of course, it's gone down the other side of TikTok, and they're like, "Well, you're
Really?
just privileged. What about the way the system's holding us back?" And I don't want to go down the political alley here, but I think we live just in a very weird time right now, where we're very divided, where I think a lot of people believe that they can get out of their own way, and the other side is very convinced they cannot. And it's unfortunately a very sad time.
I'm sure people also hit you with pretty privilege as well.
I actually don't get that a lot. I did when I first started TikTok, surprisingly, but I work in plastic surgery. I present myself in a very specific way for a reason, because I
Yeah.
build it. No, I don't get the pretty privilege thing too much. I get the wealthy thing a lot, because people haven't seen where I come from. They didn't see me working 2 jobs, 3 jobs at once, working the overnight shifts, working until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They never see that. Unfortunately, they just see the fact that I live in a nice house and I have a nice car and I have built this life for myself that I never thought that I would ever achieve, because they don't want to, right? They just think that you are born into this and that's the only way that you can ever become successful. And it's sad, because we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of stories that we can showcase to people where that's not the case. People have gone from very poor lifestyles to being exceptionally successful, and it takes work. It does. But we also live in a very lazy society, unfortunately. And it is hard to get out of that mentality. And I don't think that it's always solely due to laziness. I think that mental health comes into it significantly. But I just wish that so let me back up a little bit. I think social media is such an important role in our society right now. And I don't want there to be regulations on social media. I just wish that there were more positive videos being pushed out there to say, no, you can get to where you want to go. You just have to get out of your own way. But unfortunately, the videos that are being showcased on TikTok, on YouTube, even on Instagram for Reels, and even on TV, is that no, you cannot get out of your own way. You are where you are, and you will always be where you currently are, because people are holding you down. And I wish that we could change that narrative, because we live in a time right now where you can do anything you would like with a little bit of effort. It's all right. I'm surprised that my dogs aren't barking either.
She's going to be on one for a second.
Right.
It sounds like somebody's walking past the house. Can you hear the pounding on the floor?
Yeah.
Yes. She's 83 pounds.
She's excited.
She's very excited. I love her to death. She's a good girl. She saved me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Dogs tend to do that.
They do.
Mhm.
It's interesting that people always see where you are right now,
Yes.
and they just assume that's how it's always been.
Mhm.
And it's confusing for me, because when I look at people, I just assumed that we all started in this place that was like, yeah, it was a struggle. You had to go through all these different experiences and these challenges. And just over time, you end up, like I said earlier, learning to exercise that FU muscle, and you look at the world a little bit differently, and you start believing in yourself a little bit more. And you give yourself all of these things because nobody else is giving it to you. So you read books and you self educate and you hop on YouTube and you listen to hundreds of audibles. For me, I took a massive bet on myself and said, I'm going to college in my 30s. And it's just like everybody, when I went, they're like, how are you going to afford that? How are you going to pay for that? Why are you doing that now? Why are you
Yeah.
starting over? That's ridiculous. Why would
Yep.
you do that? And it's like, holy smoke. Can't you just say good job?
Yeah.
I went to a junior college for 2.5 years for a second time to get enough credits to be able to go to school. And then I get the credits. I go to school. I only applied to one school and I got in. I'm like, if I don't get into this one, that's it. Then I'm not doing anything else. And so I completely bet on that one school letting me in, and they called me a non-traditional student.
What a great way to put that.
No, I know, because I was in my 30s, and they're
Yeah.
like, "So you are a non-traditional student.
Mhm.
Therefore, I belong in a certain quota." And they're like, "You're in." I was like, "Thank you very much, non-traditional student. That's awesome." But through that process, there was also a little bit of validation, because in my second year, I ended up getting a scholarship. One of the teachers suggested, they're like, "Hey, you should apply for this." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do it, because I don't want to take it away from the other students who deserve this. Because they did everything the right way. And
Mm.
I didn't do it the right way." So it's like, already I'm not accepting like this gift that I've given myself of
Yeah.
education, and seeing myself as I'm seeing myself as less than, as not capable, as not deserving.
Mm.
I think so many of us go through that. I just looked at it like, no, man, these kids, they did it the right way. They deserve this. I'm not even going to apply. That's ridiculous. I shouldn't do that, because I don't want to take it from them. So I applied for it. I ended up getting it, and it wasn't much, but it was enough to pay for books
Yeah.
for
Hey, it helps.
a year. And it was at a time where I needed it desperately. I had an
Yeah.
apartment that was like $645 a month. And then I was working a job for just a little over $40,000 a year, and then going to school more than full time at the same time, just so I could afford all of it. And I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, but it was just like,
That's okay.
I've never actually shared this part of my background on a podcast. Good on you for dragging that out of me.
Giving it
But
out again. You
yeah.
got to share it at some point.
Well, so we could stop there on that, because it's you're right. You do have to share things at some point. And you recently went on the Whatever podcast.
Yeah.
For me, I've gotten a ton of requests to go on other people's podcasts, and
Yeah.
I just don't do it, for the same reason why, like Joe Rogan doesn't. It's just like, this is my thing. This is what I do. I invite people on. We have these conversations. It's a lot of fun to be able to do that. But for me to be in the hot seat, never liked it ever since I was a kid. And I think
Okay.
part of that is because I struggled with reading as a kid,
Okay.
and they would make you read out loud. And I had to go to like speech therapy, because my parents have this accent from the East Coast that was awful. I'd say window, orange, yellow. And they're just like, this kid,
What part of the East Coast?
Baltimore.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, I went
Yeah.
to college in Baltimore. So yeah.
So like inner city Baltimore. It was
Yeah.
just like window down.
Say home. Is it
Yeah.
home?
Home,
Home?
Dundalk. And
So
it's just,
funny.
yeah, it's so bad. But to people in the Midwest, and I'm just like a second grader, they're like, this kid is not right.
Mhm.
So this kid needs some help. And I did, unknowingly, but they didn't provide the right help. So they gave me speech therapy, and that was great, but I struggled my whole life. So I'm curious to know, what was your experience with going on the Whatever podcast, and how did that actually
Yeah.
transpire? Is that something that you had to like actively seek out and sign up
Mm-mm.
for?
No, so I was just sitting on my couch one day and I got a DM from the Whatever podcast. I had posted one of the videos I posted on TikTok. I just posted it to Instagram because frankly, I hate Instagram. So I just started to repost my stuff from TikTok to Instagram just so I can keep a following up there. And I guess they saw it because it went viral on Instagram and they DM'd me asking me if I wanted to come on the show. I currently live in Houston and I have vowed to never go back to California because I lived there for a short period of time and I hated it. So I was going back and forth with them because they thought that I had lived in Cali for a while. And I said, I actually live in Houston. So it's difficult for me to get out there. Nothing really came from it for a while. That was like back in September. And then early October, they reached back out and they were like, hey, we'd really still like to bring you on. And we went through rates and everything. And then eventually I just ended up flying out there one day and you really don't get much background. They don't give you the information about anything about who you're going to be with or the location or anything until about an hour beforehand. So I showed up because I had seen clips of Whatever podcast on TikTok. Obviously, they go viral all the time. I've never sat down and watched an entire episode. So I didn't know, in case you don't know, it's an 8-hour long podcast where they live stream it. Oh, it's 8 hours. Yep. Oh, yeah. So
God,
they,
that's a hard no, man.
oh, yeah. So you don't
No.
know that though until they give you the information. And it was interesting because when I had gotten to the studio, they had told some of the girls that were on the panel that it was only going to be 2 or 3 hours. And they told other girls it could be upwards of 8 or 9 hours. I was one they told, an hour beforehand it was going to be 8 or 9 hours. But I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what we could talk about for 8 or 9 hours, but sure, let's talk. And frankly, my episode could have probably been 3 or 4 hours total, just because it died off, but they live stream it and they have a very specific audience they like to work up, and they're getting income based upon, I don't know how Twitch works, but I guess you send stuff in TikTok and they pay you through it. So they really drag it out. They really drag it out. But it was an interesting experience. They don't give you a role to play beforehand. And I have very specific branding over TikTok. Like the personality that most people see of TikTok, of me specifically, is maybe 5 to 10% of my personality. And I think that they saw that and they brought me on board to be that girl who was going to just hound on these other women who
light everybody up.
light them up and question them and make them feel terrible for choosing the life that they've chosen to live. And that, to me, I'm not that person at my core. Genuinely, I am more interested to learn why people have gotten down the path they have, because I don't look down upon women, because quite frankly, there were the people who I was sitting in a room with who were the individuals who are doing adult film. They're making 4 times the amount of money that I am. So who am I to tell that, hey, you shouldn't be doing this? There were some questionable things that some of the girls have also said. But again, I believe that everybody's living the experience, has a certain life. It has beliefs within their life due to the experiences they've been through. So I'm not going to tell this girl who, on my episode, there was one girl who was 38, 39 and single and only wanted to date millionaires. I'm not going to tell her she shouldn't do that, because if she's doing that and that's what she thinks that she can do, fantastic.
Yeah, manifest it, make it happen.
100%. And if you can be a stay-at-home wife making millions of dollars a year, not having to work, love that for you. It was an interesting experience because they put you in a room, like you get there about an hour before filming and you are allowed to sit there. They go through the rules. They have like a bunch of different rules that one of the assistant producers tells you in terms of like the words you can't use. They want you to post certain things. You can't get up from the table, like random little rules. And then the other 45 minutes, you're sitting there conversing with these other women. The problem is when you sit in a room with a group of women, we're all going to get to know each other because we're all lovey-dovey. And that's just, I think, part of our makeup is to get to know people. And then they immediately start the streaming and Andrew comes on. And Andrew, do you know anything about Andrew Wilson?
Just what I've seen on social media.
And that's how he is. Yes, he just immediately starts with the berating. And I have a very strong fight or flight that kicks in.
Oh,
because it's the first podcast I've ever been on. I get very, like, when I'm put in a very confrontational situation, I'm not somebody typically who will just immediately come back and start fighting others. Like, I don't do that. I shut down this person. So when he's starting berating these women, I'm just like, nope, this is not my place. I don't know how I got here. There were times where you can actually, if you watch back on the video, I can see myself disassociating from the conversation because I'm like, this is just, I don't know how I ended up here. I don't know how I put myself in this situation, but I'm just going to stay silent.
And you did.
I did.
I didn't watch it, but I sped through it trying to find the places where you were speaking. And I think I found like 3 total where you had something to say. And you could tell that he was just like completely disinterested.
Oh, 100%.
So your parents have been together forever. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Meghan, thanks.
Yep. What do you want me to say? No. I know. I think that they were trying with that to make the differentiation between the women who have parents who are still together and who grew up in a quote unquote stable household. Now, I could argue that just because your parents are together doesn't mean you grew up in a very stable household, because that was not my situation whatsoever, versus the adult film actress whose dad left her, was in prison and all these kind of things. Right. So I think that's where they were trying to go with it, but that wasn't quite where the conversation landed. And I just wasn't really interested in having that conversation. They started bringing up religion. I'm not a religious person, so I have nothing to give back. I have nothing against religion. I've just never personally invested my life that way. So I'm not going to tell somebody who's religious that they're wrong. I'm not going to tell somebody who's not religious if they're wrong. Not my place. And they started talking about things that just were very vulgar and, again, not a place that I was really, I just wasn't interested in the conversation. So I didn't speak up.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And he certainly moved on and didn't seem like he had a problem moving on. Did they say anything afterwards about not speaking or anything like that? Did they expect more from you?
He made comments. Andrew didn't. Brian did, who's the host of the podcast. He would say a couple times, "Oh, like you're a professional yapper. You broke the professional." Because I have a little joke in my bio on TikTok saying that I'm a professional yapper. Yeah. It's a funny little quip because I that's what I do on TikTok, is I share my opinion. And he's like, "Oh, we broke the professional yapper. You have nothing to say?" So they kept trying to poke the bear. And at the end of the conversation, literally 8 hours in, once all the very loud individuals had left, everybody was quiet. And they kept trying to stir the pot with people, but nobody would speak up because by that point, we had all pretty much come to the consensus that we agree on a lot of things in life and we just didn't want to argue. And it was just a very uncomfortable situation to be in. He was more interacting with the live streamers than anything, or his commenters that were coming into the live stream saying, "Oh, we just have a dead panel today. Just a dead panel. These women are boring. They have nothing to say."
Interesting.
Very interesting.
You probably won't go back, I'm assuming.
I would probably never be invited back, and I'm okay with that.
It's funny, as I watch your content, I think a lot of us are similar for being content creators, where it's like in our personal lives, we might not be as outspoken
Mhm.
or have these types of conversations simply because in public, it's just nobody seems to want to have them. It's
Yeah.
I'm a deep person. I read a lot of books. I'm interested in a lot of stuff. It's
Yeah.
just you're not.
Yeah.
So if we're hanging out and we've been friends for 20 years and you don't
Mhm.
do anything, you don't really have any hobbies, and your primary hobby is garage beers, not that there's anything wrong with that, but good for you.
100%.
I've got a home gym and I like to read a lot of books. It just we're not on the same page with that.
And
And
that's
that's
okay.
totally okay.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's just like it feels like such a good outlet to be able to hop on social media, find other
Yes.
people that are interested in some of the same topics and they have differing opinions or suggestions and beliefs. And it can be a lot of fun having those types of interactions. It's actually like
Yeah.
fulfilling in a way because you feel like you're alone and isolated and just like nobody gets me. You're just not around the right people to get you. And then when you find that there's actually other humans on the planet that think the way that you do,
Mhm.
it's pretty satisfying and gratifying to know that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why specifically I like to do TikTok because I'm also highly introverted. So when I'm on
Same.
TikTok, I can sit in my little room with my camera and I can talk at it. You put me in front of a group of people, I can't say a word, but by
Right.
myself, I can say whatever I'm thinking. And it's funny because I wasn't always that way. I've gotten myself into pretty hot water by being a very opinionated person for a while, just in previous work settings. And I was reprimanded for that. So I think that through time, you said we all tend to be at some point, you learn how to act in real life. So I think I've just learned over time that it's sometimes it's okay to be silent and sometimes it's okay to not express your opinion always in a group filled with people because there's certain social standards that we still have to abide by in life. And TikTok's that place where I can say what I think without having to always get my hand slapped
For the most part.
for the
I
most part.
I still get videos taken down every now
Oh,
and
me
then.
too.
It's frustrating because it's again, my stuff is fairly benign overall,
Yeah.
and usually it's just somebody got irritated with a piece of the content for whatever
Mhm.
reason and just report, which is irritating.
Very much so. Yeah, I actually just got removed from the creator fund for the fourth time this year for no reason. It's that I violated community guidelines. I'm like, which guidelines? I would love
Yeah.
to know so I don't do it again. But they don't tell you, of
So
course.
that's the thing with all of this. So I use AI to edit
Mhm.
the podcast because
Yeah.
I don't have money for a production team. So it's I do all of this on my own and I
Yeah.
figured out, hey, there's some AI tools that can help me knock this out pretty quickly. So it's like
Yeah.
this podcast today, I can have it done and edited today and up on YouTube and have a couple clips on social media,
Mhm.
except on TikTok. If I try to post those clips on TikTok, even though I've labeled it as AI,
Mhm.
it gets labeled as unoriginal content,
Oh, no.
even though it's my podcast. I've labeled it as AI.
Mhm.
So there's no reason for them to take it down for anything, but they say it goes against the guidelines for the Creator Rewards program because they've labeled it unoriginal content. And then if you try
Mhm.
to appeal it, 100% no appeal every
Yeah.
time. And it says if I do it again, I'm going to be kicked out completely.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
Yep.
just like, huh. It's you encourage us to post our podcast, and then when you use tools to be able to edit it and
Mhm.
put it up there, and I'm not changing or manipulating anything that anybody's
Yeah.
saying. I'm taking out the ums, the ohs, the ahs, and the dead space,
Yeah.
and they don't seem to like that very much. But that same content, I can put it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Zero issues.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't always the case, though. I feel like that's changed over the past couple of years. TikTok's become the place where you get, I call it bananaed, bans left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the guidelines change all the time, and sometimes they don't. Like for me, I never get told what my guideline or the guideline violation that I have on TikTok. They just
Mm-mm.
remove content, and I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just post a different video because what are you going to do? There's no point in fighting it.
Yeah, you just delete it, move on, and create something else.
Exactly.
But it's
Yeah.
so frustrating
Oh
because
yeah.
even now I'm in like this lull at the end of the year where it's I don't really want to create content. I'm not
Hmm.
feeling it,
Yeah.
and but it's also how I pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
So I have to create some content and get the
Yeah.
videos out there. But I hate talking head videos where it's just like 5 steps for this, 4 steps for this. This is how you're dating and avoiding. Do I have to make that video? I don't really want to make that video. It's very
Yeah.
frustrating, but it is what it is. On that note, I saw this before I hopped on for this. So a buddy of mine, he's a therapist. He also creates content. His name's Matt Piper. He just created a video on sledging.
What does that happen?
Do you know? You don't know what this is? I didn't know either until I saw that video. But it's keeping people around and leading them on through the holidays and the winter months, just so that you can have somebody around. You don't like them, you
Hmm.
don't want to be with them. It's not going to be long term, and you're
Yeah.
keeping them around just because it's cold outside, and I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I So you want the opinion that I actually have or the opinion I'd share on TikTok?
We can do both.
Yeah. And the way I look at it is twofold. I feel for the people who think that way because that has to be a very lonely existence. If you feel like you need to keep somebody around just to keep yourself comfortable and keep yourself happy, I start to wonder, wow, what have you been through as a person that you need to always be dependent upon somebody else or to have that comfort there or to have that mental stimulation there? Why are you not able to be by yourself or to self-soothe? So it's like that's the one aspect to go down. My other aspect is you're dragging this person on, and it's not a proper thing to do, right? It's not a very nice thing to do is to drag somebody along because that I've been in situations, luckily I'm very happily married now, but I've been in previous situations where it's not fun to be that person who does get dragged along because you, at the end of the day, you're always going to look back and be like, oh, if you felt this way all along, why wouldn't you just cut the ties back then? And it's a very selfish act, unfortunately, that some people are still doing.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, especially before the holidays, like just do it before Christmas. If you're gonna break up with somebody, don't do it the week before.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, whatever. But if you're listening to this now and it's November and it's before Thanksgiving and these are your thoughts and feelings that you're having in regards
Mhm.
to the relationship that you're current in
Yep.
or situationship, whatever label you want to give to it, just go ahead and leave. Do
Yep.
yourselves a favor and say, you know what, this isn't for me. I like you. I care about you. I want what's best for you, but I also care about me. And this is not working out right now. And that's totally fine. But to lead people on like that throughout the holidays, I think is so disingenuous and it's
Mhm.
frustrating. And it just leaves the other person wondering at the end of all that when you finally get around to it in February, because you want to avoid Valentine's Day. I don't want to get a present there. I'll get a Christmas present, but I can't do
I
Valentine's Day.
can't see.
That's where I draw the line. Just let them heal, break up with
Yeah.
them, move on. The phrase that always gets said, especially in my coaching, is what if this is the best that I can do? If that phrase has ever been uttered, maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you've thought it a million times over. What if this is the best I can do? Dump that person. That's not the person for you. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be with people because you're preventing both of you from being able to have the type of relationship that you actually
Yes.
desire. And it's actually a lot closer than what you think it is,
Yep.
but you're in this situationship and you're keeping both of you stuck in this place. And this person's trying to love you. They care about you. They want to
Mhm.
be with you. They think you're the bee's knees, man. And they're putting all this effort into this relationship. And you're sitting there with a wall up and they're wondering what's happening, what's going on. I
Yep.
can't seem to get them to reciprocate. And because you continue to show up, it confuses that other person. They don't know what to make of that. They keep showing up. So they must care about me. They must love me, but you're just preventing both of you from having what it is that you actually want. And the other phrase that got stated was if I break up with them, what if they end up with somebody who's less than I am or whatever, just a complete, or they end up getting hurt in that next relationship. And it's, you're hurting them now.
Yes.
So what's the difference there? You just don't know it. You're
Mhm.
just trying to get what you want from that situationship. So just stop it. It's not fun.
Yeah, but also on that topic, is it really that they're concerned about that person going to somebody who's lesser, or is it that they don't want that partner to get with somebody who is quote unquote, for lack of a better term here, better, and to actually be happy? Because that then is a control issue, and if it's a control
100%.
issue, that's something that they really need to be working on.
Yeah, it was a comment that popped up in one of my posts a few weeks ago, and I was just like, I just thought it was so interesting that you're sitting there thinking, what if they end up with somebody who doesn't love them like I do? And it's just like, but you're not loving them now. Like, how does
Yes.
that statement make sense to you?
Yeah.
Like, it was a mind bender for me because it's just like, you're not loving and caring about them now. So of course they would find somebody that is going to love them more than
Mhm.
you do.
Yeah.
Of
Absolutely.
course. Do you believe in soulmates, or is compatibility something you create over time?
That's a really good question. This is one I go back and forth on. I don't think I ever believed in soulmates until I met my husband, frankly, because I think that you can become compatible with a lot of different people based upon varying factors and where you are in your life and how you've grown and how you've changed. But I do think that there's an inherent feeling that you get when you meet the correct person that you can't ignore. So whether that's a soulmate, that's a soul connection, or I think some people call it like a fire, like a twin flame or whatever. I
Mm,
can't answer if that's the case. I don't know. But I think that there is a very strong gut feeling that you can follow and that can be correct.
I like that answer. No twin flames, by the way, guys. That's get rid of that woo stuff in terms of your relationships. And if you haven't watched, there's been a couple documentaries done on. There was this one couple that it was all about twin flames.
Mm,
I think it was even the name of like uh, their Instagram handle or something like that. But it's on Hulu, and then Netflix did one as well on the same couple. Go watch that. Do yourself a favor, just spend some time with it and then really think long and hard about twin flames and soulmates and what that actually means to you.
yeah.
I think for a lot of it, it's just, it comes down to understanding compatibility. And
Mhm.
is this someone that I can see being with for the next 50 years? And
Yeah.
how do we argue and how do we disagree? And can we navigate these situations without thinking that every single disagreement is just the end of the relationship?
Yes.
Right.
That.
And I think for a lot of people, the answer is no, they got angry and now the relationship's just over. It's done. We can't go back. And it's no, that's actually, that's an invitation in to have a deeper conversation about your goals, your values, your standards, how you want to be treated, boundaries, and start using that type of language to build your relationships. I talk a lot about a shared mission and vision.
Mm,
Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why are you in this relationship? I always tell people, do you have a 1, 3, and 5 year plan for
mhm.
your relationships? And
Yeah.
what does that actually look like? So that you're creating something sustainable in the long term. And I know that sounds like a lot to put a lot of effort into that, but when we get into all these short-term relationships that people are so used to, I'm just going to hop
Mhm.
on an app, we're going to swipe, we're going to hang out for a little bit, we'll spend 3 months together. I'm going to be super disappointed at the end of that 3 months because you're not who you said you were
Mhm.
when both people were on their best behavior during that 3 month period to begin with. And so we just have like this skewed view of, how to build and create and cultivate healthy
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah, I agree. I also think though that we've gotten to the point in a society where people cannot build long-lasting relationships because of the relationships that they saw growing up. Even if it's not in their own personal life, but just watch anything that's on TV, the movies that they've seen. They grow up with this fairy tale idea that people have to be treated like kings and princesses and queens. And I think that's a great aspiration to get to, but humans are flawed. Humans are going to make mistakes. And you just have to have those tough conversations over what mistakes are allowed and which ones are not allowed. And people aren't willing to do that because they just assume that there's always going to be. I think we just have a very negative view on the world currently. It's not necessarily we, but the collective we as a
Yeah.
society. And they always just believe that people are always going to do the worst and the worst in the best case situation, best case scenario. And I don't believe that.
So what you're saying is everybody listening right now isn't going to go to their hometown for the holidays and go to the Christmas tree lot and meet the love of their life from
Find
high
their
school.
soulmate. They might. It's very improbable if you haven't done that already in your hometown.
That seems to be the picture that's been painted, that
Yes.
somehow that's exactly how things are gonna pan out, and it's no, you meet somebody that you can tolerate, and then and that you think is pretty or handsome or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's you have similar goals, values, and standards. I said
Mhm.
similar, not exact,
Yes.
and you're like, "I can do life with this person. We
Mhm.
can do this," and as long as they're down for it too, it's just like, "Great," and then you continuously work on it together.
Mhm.
But
And
I
have a friendship, and have the
yeah.
friendship part is huge. If you cannot be friends with your partner, it's never gonna last.
So what are some things that you do with your partner currently that help build and sustain that relationship?
We're big gym goers. He actually
Nice.
oversees a big gym chain that's down here. So we work out together at least 3 or 4 times a week because that's a very important part of my lifestyle that I always stick to, and something that's very important for him. And one, I think that everybody should live a very healthy lifestyle because I think physical health leads to mental health or positive mental health.
Yeah.
But two, it's like our time to be together because he works long hours, I work long hours. And especially with working a 9 to 5 and then also doing social media, it's easy for us to get disconnected. But we also have date nights. We don't necessarily stick to one day per week, but if I'm just going shopping and we don't have a date night that week, I'm just like, you're coming with me to Hobby Lobby. And that's our date night. So it's rare when we're not together, and we never put ourselves in situations where if one's invited, the other's invited. Plus, I don't think I'd ever really go somewhere where my husband wouldn't be invited because I wouldn't have a really good time without him.
That's sweet. I like that.
Thank you.
How's he feel about your social media?
Fine, because I've been pursuing social media for years, and I just, again, never really stuck to YouTube or Instagram because it wasn't my cup of tea. He's gotten a little blowback when I've had very specific videos go viral. Unfortunately, he gets the brunt end of it because there's some crazies that'll reach out to everybody and their mother, everybody and your mother on TikTok or on
Oh,
Instagram.
so these aren't like gym goers that go to the gym and berate him in public. This is on
No.
they found him online and
Oh,
started
yeah.
trying to create dialogue. Holy
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, that happens to everybody. So people I mean, we can get down that alley in a minute, but the people who approach him in real life, because he actually oversees an influencer gym that's down in Houston. They've seen a lot of my content, but a lot of times they will never approach me. I don't know why, but they'll go to him and
Oh,
be
gee,
like,
I don't know why.
click, but they'll go to him and be like, "Is that your wife? I've seen her on TikTok. I love her content." No, again, a lot of the content that I post, I'm in Houston, so we're all like-minded, and having this idea of getting out of your self-victim-minded mentality, I think that's something a lot of people at the gym have because you're trying to do better for
Mm.
yourself. And a lot of people who don't, it's rare when you go to the gym and you find somebody who's not trying to do better for themselves, right? So it's pretty rare when you come across somebody who thinks the opposite or would berate you in public. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but it's rare. So in real life, he gets the opposite. He gets more love for it than anything. Online, though, it's different. Oh, yeah. He's had DMs from people saying, "Your wife is a terrible person. Why would you ever be with her? You need to leave her." My mom has gotten death threats before. Oh, yeah. Huh. Over some videos. People, they go little haywire crazy, little keyboard warriors.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm quick to block, delete, all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. Obviously, I allow for a wide variety of opinions and dialogue, but the second that it becomes vulgar or threatening in any way, it's like, you're out. See ya.
Yeah.
Don't have time or space for that type of mentality or behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had anybody, knock on wood, contact me like that. I can't imagine.
Oh, wow. Really? I'm
No.
surprised because I think it's pretty abundant, unfortunately, in the positivity end of TikTok. I call it self positivity end of TikTok. And it's always when I get stitched by a larger creator who doesn't agree with me. It happened most recently in this past June. My husband and I had actually gone away for his birthday, and I was like inundated with all these texts or DMs because there's a creator who stitched one of my videos, and all of his followers, they were all like little kids, I'm assuming though. They were all, I know, but which is a different topic for, but they were just making just crazy videos, DMing me crazy things, saying they were going to come to my house and do crazy things. My previous job had people try to dox me too, would send inquiries in and say, "How would you hire somebody who has these beliefs?" Luckily, I'm the one that gets the inquiries, so I could like skirt that. But people, it's just sad again because there's people who are just so focused on line that they can't get out of it. So they just think that it is their duty and it's their task to bring down other people because in their bones, they believe that's their truth. How they feel is the correct way. And if somebody's speaking out against that they're a terrible person and they need to make sure that person is given the justice they deserve, even though that's not necessarily, I don't know how I want to put this, but it's not just because we disagree on things doesn't make me a bad person or make them a bad person. They just can't see it that way. So there's a lot more people that are like that than one would believe, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sounds like they
Yeah.
need to come to my page and take a walk with me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I will say I do have rules about posting on social media, and it's
Mhm.
I'll pay attention for the first 24 hours to comments
Mhm.
and I might respond. And then after 24 hours, I'm done. I don't revisit it. I don't go back to it.
Oh, good.
There might be people 3, 6 months later, a year later, I've had that happen where
Mhm.
a post gets hot again and they're commenting and doing all the things. And it's just like, I'm not going back into that. That's in the past. I've already moved on to this
Yeah.
next product that I've created
Mhm.
because I can't go down that rabbit hole with people with their experiences and their problems and their issues. It's like, if you want to talk to me, you want to have dialogue with me,
Yeah.
I've given you plenty of ways to do that. You just go to the link in my bio, check it out, and you can sign up for some certain things, get some
Mhm.
free things as well. You can listen to the podcast and get a lot of great information from the people that wrote the books behind me. And of course, people like yourself who provide a ton of value and information. And that's always my suggestion, but it's you have to set those rules for yourself just
Mhm.
because it does have an impact on your self-esteem as well if you allow it by getting into the trappings of what I see as a lot of just mental health issues that
Oh,
quite
absolutely.
honestly, it's just not my problem. So
Mhm.
talk to your therapist for that. Not being mean, it's just like you don't get to write 20 messages of just, horrible statements.
Mhm.
And then we're just supposed to sit here and just like take it.
And take
Because
it.
if we were in Aldi, we wouldn't be having that conversation. You'd
Mhm.
walk right by me. You wouldn't say anything.
Mhm.
But because we're online, you'll just word vomit as
Mhm.
much as you want. And I have no recourse. I have to say nothing. I just have to sit there and take it.
Mhm.
So I don't think so.
Yeah. I've learned that the block and delete button could be one of my favorite tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Layla Hermosi talks about it too. It's like block and delete often. Her comments in the very beginning, I remember were pretty brutal because I remember seeing her and Alex pop up on my feed. I'm like, who are these jokers? What are they
Mhm.
all about? And because you just see Alex with the beard and long hair and the
I
hat,
know.
and he's just like, yeah, so this is, and he comes at you, and you're just like, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
And so for the first like 6 months, I ignored him. I'm like, but he kept popping up, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay, fine. So I started watching some of his videos. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's actually pretty useful. And then I started deploying a lot of what I learned from them. I took all his free stuff, and I've got his books over here now. And it's just, and I find that a lot of people do that. They see you in the beginning. You make them feel feelings. They don't like those feelings. They don't know how to manage
Mhm.
those feelings. And so they
Yep.
push it off and they might leave a couple nasty comments. And then 6 months later, they come back or on one of your new posts and they'll say, hey, yeah, you know what? Actually, you're actually pretty all right. And I like your content. And I was just feeling really horrible about myself at the time. I was going through a breakup. All these things were going on in their life and they just took it out on the content creator at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Learn to feel your
Yeah.
feelings. It's okay.
Yeah, but I think it's good that you understand that because a lot of people don't, which is also, I think, why you and I are having this conversation because we've gotten to the point where we're like, we've experienced this, we've been there, we've
Yeah.
been those people who have had those feelings and have lashed out on others. It's about understanding that people are going through that and
I never
accept.
lashed out because
Oh,
not that I didn't want to, and not because I didn't have something to say or a quick little quip to give somebody. I can do that very well. But I stopped myself from doing it because anything that you put out online, it's just going to come back to you tenfold
yeah, oh, yeah.
and at a later date. So why do that to yourself? It's
Mhm.
like I'm building a brand, I'm creating something, I know what I'm creating, I'm doing the best I can with it. You had to start somewhere. When I started, I didn't know what I was doing or how to do it or how to navigate it or how to create the
Yeah,
content. I didn't know what camera to use. And even still, I'm evolving with my content
yeah.
as it grows, as I get new information and I meet new people like yourself and we share our ideas and our thoughts and we make each other better through that process. And I just wish more people would see each other like that. It's just like, instead of lashing out, why not just step back for a second and say, okay, shit, why do I feel this way?
Mhm.
Why am I so angry right now? Why am I frustrated? Why do I feel less than? Why does anything that Megan says make me feel anxious or you get that feeling in your gut or the adrenaline rush up the side of your neck and you can feel your
Mhm.
face getting red? Why is that happening? And that's a great opportunity to do that self check-in that I talk about all the time.
Mhm.
Zoom out, step back, take a breath. We call it a physiological sigh. It's a double inhale in through the nose and a long exhale out. And then just grab a notebook and a pen and start writing. Like, damn, Megan, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? You start writing the stuff out. You begin to realize this is just something that's going on inside of me. It's because it reminds me of this past experience and this emotion. Now I've got some work to do on trying to release that thought, feeling, or emotion so that I can move forward with my life instead of being stuck in the past.
Yeah, yeah. I think though it takes work to get to that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have grown up with the mentality that emotions mean more than logic does. And I think that it's okay to have a good mixture of emotion and logic, because your logic can check your emotion and your emotion can also check what is actually logical and what it's not.
Should couples share everything with each other, or are some secrets necessary for a healthy relationship?
Oh, I think, oh, that's a really tricky one because I can get myself down a bad path of answer this. It's not that I think that secrets are okay, especially if they're things that you're currently going through. I think that anything that you're currently experiencing in your everyday life now, you need to be an open book with your partner. I think that if you have lived a certain lifestyle prior to your partner and it's stuff that you do not want to talk about because you left it in the past, I think that's okay to keep as a secret. And I think that's okay to keep in your past. I mean, it's like your everything, obviously, that's going to get hard. But no, I think that for the most part, if you are with a partner that you want to be with forever and you want to evolve and grow with until death do us part, then I think that it's important to remain an open book.
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging conversation for a lot of people because it goes along the same lines as I don't even want to say it, but everybody likes to have this conversation about body count. And when we put ourselves in this place of having this, all of that is in the past. Is this a relevant conversation to now? Is it going to have an impact in the future? And I think it becomes challenging because people change over long periods of time. So you're in your 20s and you go through different phases of your life. And then by the time you're 30, you're more established and you might have a different belief system than what you had 10 years ago. I think they actually brought it up when you were on the show on whatever podcast where somebody had been celibate for a while, but had had a past and then they're celibate. And then so in that situation where you have a bit of history and then you've been celibate, how much information are you sharing with this new person about your life and who you are or who you've become?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's one of those situations where I think that you should be honest. If you have, I mean, if you have a very high body count, like one or two of those girls, it would be important for them to know just for their own physical safety, because there's things that can come from having a very high body count. But I don't think that it's once you're, I don't know about you, but again, once you're in your 30s, 40s, it's, I'm not going to blame somebody who has a body count of 30, 40 plus people because again, they've lived a different life than I have. And I would want to know personally as a woman, if you're in the top hundreds or thousands, like that one girl was in the
Right.
show, because
Oh
that,
man. Yeah.
oh yeah, wasn't that crazy? Yeah. But at the same time, it's not, it would make me second guess some things, but that doesn't mean that person hasn't changed or reformed. So it's good to know that, but I don't need to know all the interworking or the little bitty details about it.
Yeah. It's like that person that just got kicked out of Australia.
Oh my gosh,
I think
yes.
that's where she was. I don't want to dive into that, but holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Oh, get yourself kicked out of a country.
Wild times.
Come on, man. Do you? So another question that pops up, is it ever okay to go through your partner's phone or is it always a breach of trust?
I go back and forth on this one too. It's
As you've done it?
in previous relationships, absolutely yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. In my current relationship, I would never have need for it. Literally, I don't even know my husband's lock, which I think it's probably an issue if something were to happen. I wouldn't be able to contact my landlord because I don't know who my landlord even is. No, I think that if you're at the point in a relationship where you feel like you have to go through your partner's phone, then there's a much deeper concern there that you need to address up front. But I think that it's fine if you want to go through your partner's phone. I think that it's an issue if you ask to go through your partner's phone and your partner doesn't want you to. But I think that there's a deeper issue that you need to connect with your partner about if you feel like there's trust that's being broken that you even need to go through the phone for.
Yeah. So it's a super interesting conversation because there is a certain amount of privacy that I think every person should have.
Yeah.
I think your phone is one of those places because you're going to have separate conversations that actually have nothing to do with your partner
Yes.
that can be between you and your friends. And it's so how much access are you actually looking to gain here? Do you want the iPad so you can constantly see every message that's floating in and then you have no privacy whatsoever for your thoughts or your friendships or how you interact with other people? But I think you're right in that that's your sign and signal right there is if that's the predominant emotion that's coming out of you in that moment, there's bigger fish to fry. It's a completely different conversation that has to happen, has nothing to do with the phone and everything to do with your trust in your partner and that relationship. So you got to take an inventory of that relationship and figure out like, where is this coming from and why do you not trust them?
Correct. Yes. Because I think that if you constantly live in fear of what that person's saying behind your back, then there's zero trust in that relationship, and that's not the relationship for you.
Yeah, especially if they're showing up and they are loving, they are kind, they are
Yes.
that protector, provider, whoever it is, male or female, doesn't matter. But you're in what could be a potentially healthy relationship, but
Mhm.
it becoming unhealthy because of your own fears that you haven't dealt with necessarily.
Correct. Yes. And it's having been in that mindset previously, I could tell you it's a very difficult situation to get out of, or very difficult mindset to get out of, because it's this constant worry over, am I good enough to make sure that my partner will stay with me? That's really the core issue of it. Is it's not even necessarily just like a trust thing. It's, are they, what there's a term for it. Are they trying to ruin the relationship before it even gets good? Self
Self sabotage.
Self-sabotage, thank you. Yes, I think a lot of people self-sabotage because they're afraid of being comfortable in their situation because they're so used to uncomfortability.
Yeah, it's the fear of being seen. It's the
Yes.
fear of actually being in that committed relationship. It has less to do with the commitment and more to do with this person's just going to reject and abandon me anyway.
Yep.
So I have to seek out and look for all the reasons why that might happen.
Mhm.
And then you don't realize that becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy and it ends up happening anyway. So,
Bingo. Yep.
which sucks. So don't do that to yourself. So if you're listening now, like that again, that's the perfect time for the self check-in to zoom out, step back, grab a notebook, do some breath work, go for a walk, put your phone down, ask yourself why you feel the way that you do, and how many relationships have been, I don't want to say ruined, but have been challenged by this type of behavior that have ended because of that behavior. And then you begin to realize, shoot, I guess I'm the common denominator in this, and maybe I got some things to work on.
Mhm. Yes, agreed.
And that's actually a really good place to be. When you can see that about yourself, when you create and cultivate that self-awareness, it's holy smokes. It's like you have a whole new lease on life because it's like, oh, okay, so these are things that I can actually take care of. I can manage. I can learn to grow through this. And then I can look at relationships a little bit differently, be more inviting, maybe be a little more open with my communication and find people that are willing to have that dialogue with me that then
Mhm.
help me feel safe and grounded or anchored in this relationship. Can love alone sustain a relationship?
No,
Why
you
not?
can love somebody with your whole being, but if you don't put the time and the effort into continually building that relationship, love is never going to be enough. Because love comes in varying forms, right? I love my best friend. That doesn't mean I want to see her every single day, or even live with her or be with her. But you have to constantly work on your communication skills. You have to constantly work at being the best version of yourself, because you're going to have days where you're not the best version of yourself. You're going to have days where you're in your depressive states, when you're in your high states. And people always use the term, it needs to be a 50-50 relationship, which I agree it should average out to be 50-50 over the course of your lifespan. But there's going to be times where I'm 10% of myself and he needs
Yeah.
to pick up the other 90%. And you have to be willing to do that even if you're not in the best mindset, because if your partner is going through something, then you, even if you're at 10%, you got to figure out a way to at least together get to 100%. So it cannot just be about love, because love also comes and goes. Like you can have a core value of, or core belief in love, or be in love with somebody for your entire relationship. But there's times where I wake up and I look at my husband and I'm like, I don't like you today. I love you always, but I do not like you today. And you have to love that person enough and have to be committed enough in that relationship to get past those periods.
So how do you get past that?
Self reflection, because in the past, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I have a very much a fight or flight mentality. And in previous relationships, I've definitely been the person who would threaten to leave always, because I was like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable, because I grew up in a very unstable household. So I don't feel comfortable. So I'm going to see how far can I get you to go that way, to see how far you care about me before I need to be the one to give. And when I feel those times where I'm like, I don't like my husband today, I check myself. I do what makes me happy. I go to the gym. I watch the movies that I want to watch, or I converse with my best friend, or I focus on other things until I'm able to get to the point in my feels where I can have a very specific conversation with my husband, so that way we're back on the same page.
Man, that is such an honest and truthful answer. To be able to acknowledge that about yourself, that it's like, again, it's that self-awareness to know how I'm showing up, how I operate.
Yep.
You're in touch with your nervous system and you understand that you're in this place of fight or flight for whatever reason. And maybe diving into that can be helpful. And maybe sometimes it's not, where it's just like, no, I need to go for a walk. I need to go to the gym, take care of myself and do a self-care day and kind of ground myself in the moment. And then you allow yourself the opportunity to then have a conversation with your husband. So
Mhm.
what is his role in all of that to help bring you back out of that low end 10%?
Yeah, so I give my husband a lot of credit because we have an age gap. We have a 10-year age gap, so he's older than I am and he's lived a lot more life than I have and he's been through a part of our relationship where he's actually helped me grow and develop quite a bit as a person. And I'm so thankful for that because there were times where I was not a very loving person. That honestly, the way that I used to treat people, I don't know why he ever was with me, quite frankly. So I give him a lot of credit because we've just learned throughout time and that we need to have open conversations. So when I'm in a really bad headspace, he'll look at me, he'll be like, "Are you okay?" No, genuinely, "What do you need? What do you need? Let's talk about it. What are you going through?" Because there's something that's underlying that this is not we're not connecting right now, and it's not a me issue, it's not a you issue. We just need to what is going on? What is the true feelings that you're having that we need to work on? So we're able to have that dialect back and forth because we worked on it. We've been together for 8, 9 years at this point, and we know each other enough to be able to do that.
And in the past where you were like, oh, that's gross. You're so weak. Get away from me. Why would you want to talk to me?
No, I was never like that. No, it's just
Because that's a lot of the reaction. It's like, what do you mean you want to have a conversation about this? And so then they get the ick and it's like, we're done.
it's
I need the
baseline.
chaos. I need the toxicity. Give it all
Yeah,
to me.
yeah. But those are those baseline relationships, right? And that's why people are not able to have lasting relationships currently is because they're not willing to put the time and the effort and the work in because they always think that something better is going to come around. And maybe something better, quote unquote, better will come around, but that doesn't mean that you can't do the work and can't put the effort in. We've just become a very lazy society who accepts failure far too often, unfortunately, in my opinion. And I do believe that if a person's not right for you, a person's not right for you, great, move on. But I think that you still need to put time and effort and belief into your relationship if you genuinely want to make it work before you leave it.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, we hit these roadblocks. And when you're immature in your process with building and cultivating relationships, you don't know how to get through that. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's a roadblock means it's just not meant to be because the
Mhm.
person that's meant for me, this is going to be easy and all these things are going to happen and they're going to give me everything that I've ever asked for. And it's no, not really. You got to work for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So do you think social media has ruined modern relationships?
Yes, entirely. I think social media has I think it was already on a downward decline before social media really took a became large and in charge in our society. But yes, I think that the constant stimulation of seeing all the content that we can see now with everybody exposing every little bit of themselves physically and mentally, and also having the constant stimulation of just outside voices, it's hard to get past.
What about dating apps?
I it's hard for me to give an opinion. I know. Oh, my light just died. It's hard for me to give an opinion on that only because I was never really on dating apps. I My husband and I again have been together for about 8 years at this point, so I think they came popular around that time frame. But I don't know. I don't believe that online relationships. It's hard for me to say because I think that I've seen great couples come out of online relationships. I just don't think that people are able to be fully themselves online. So it's hard to only meet people online and then see if it's I don't know. It's hard for me to share an opinion on that.
So when I talk about it, I look at it from the anxious person's perspective where they
Mhm,
pre-qualify people that they see online.
mhm,
Because so they can go to a profile and they're like,
mhm,
"Ooh, I'm gonna right swipe on this one because I like the prompts, I like the pictures, I like everything that's
mhm,
going on." And you start to create this mental image of like who this
mm,
person might be. And then you're like,
yep,
I guess I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll go to Google and I'll go to their
mhm,
Instagram and I might have enough information to then run a background check. And then I'm gonna have all my friends look at it too. So I'm gonna send them all of that. And
yep,
before you even meet this person, you have all of this information. And you've painted this
mhm,
picture of who they potentially are and maybe you start to daydream a little bit about, oh,
mhm,
well, they're tall, they're strong, they're handsome, or she's beautiful, gorgeous, and whatever. And then you get there and the conversation sucks.
oh, yeah.
And there's so much dissonance in that moment because, well, I've already created a story about who this person is. They went to
Mhm,
Harvard and they got a law degree and they're just amazing, but they're a dud at dinner.
yep,
So what do you do with that?
mhm. But I also think that with online dating or even just with social media as a whole, is that we have so many people who are now in our life who never would have been in our life before,
Yeah.
that people aren't willing to put the time in to get to know somebody to see if it's even going to be a match, right? So when you're on those swipe apps, you're like, oh, this person looks great. But the next slide, oh, this person looks even better. Oh, this person has makes this much money. This person only makes this much, right? So you might have swiped on somebody who might only, I don't know, from the outside looking in, might not be successful. They're looking for somebody successful, but they might have been your soulmates. They might have been your best friend. You just don't know because of the qualifications they put down because you didn't take the time to actually get to know them. Whereas in the olden days, you would go to a bar and you would meet somebody in
Right.
person, and you only have the capacity to talk to a couple people at once. Whereas online, you have the capacity to talk to thousands.
No, I agree. Again, it's that fear of missing out. What if there's
Yes.
something better? And then that goes back to the conversation with the holidays and sledging where, what if there's just somebody that's better? So I'm going to hang on to this person because I don't want to be
Yeah.
alone, but I'm going to be thinking in the back of my mind, what if there's someone better?
Yep.
It's just unfair to do that to people. And it's why I talk so much about you have to know who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and the why behind why you're doing it. You have to know and trust yourself and then just be willing to allow people the space to show you exactly who they are. I don't really care how you meet people. I think in the city, dating apps are great because there's a ton of people. You can constantly meet up. If you're out in the sticks or in the country, it's a little bit more difficult because
Hmm.
they tend to all date each other if they're in and around the same
Yeah.
age group. Is it better to forgive and rebuild trust after cheating?
Ooh,
And,
no.
and does infidelity always signal the end of a relationship?
Maybe a hot take on this one. But if I was ever cheated on, I also think that we need to define what cheating is because cheating can mean different things to different people. So are we talking about emotional cheating or are we talking about physical cheating?
So that goes back to the social media conversation because I was watching a video today where the girl was like, I never post anybody I date. I don't create any stories around anybody that I date because
Mhm.
what if there's someone better?
Mm,
And it's just like, if you're going into every relationship like that, now I don't
yeah.
care about posting your significant other. I think at different stages of life, like different stages and ages, it was because again, you hear it's mixed reviews on this. A lot of people are like, no, you need to post me. Sure. It depends on what your brand is, what type of content you're creating,
Yes.
because you don't want to impede somebody's ability to make money, right? If that's their business and that's what they do. And,
Yes.
they talk about relationships and all this other stuff and they want to
Mhm.
keep their family private and secret. And I get that 100%.
Mhm.
Like people know probably 2% about my life. They see my home gym in my basement and they see like the background that is faded out, blurred out as I'm doing my walks. And they've seen the Camaro. That's it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
haven't seen any part of my life of the relationships that I have, the people that I hang out with, the conversations I have, the way that I live my life. You might see some food that I make every now and again. That's really about it. But I do that intentionally because that's not for you. That's for me. Now, what is for you is the podcast and the type
Mhm.
of content that I create. And the reason I create it is to help you grow, change, evolve, and to know and trust yourself. And if I'm doing that and I'm accomplishing that task, that's good enough. And it should be good enough for other people. So, from that aspect, I've thought about this. I'm not going to post family. I'm not going to post kids. I'm not going to, that's not something that I'm interested in doing because you have to protect that part of your life and you have to protect
Yes.
those people.
Yes. I agree entirely.
Again, because of the weirdo conversations that end up happening in your DMs or the
Mhm.
comments that get made and people, they show up places and
Oh, they do.
when they
Yep.
shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to protect your peace and protect what's real to you because we all while social media is real, right? Like we're all real people on social media. At the same time, you're pretty much getting again 5 to 10% of somebody's life online, so it's not going to be the full version of themselves. I think it's important to have your own private life because it is very easy to get wrapped up in social media and all the positive aspects and the negative aspects on it, and to think that this is real life, but I agree. I very rarely post my husband. I do not post like, my family members just because it's not something that I want. Because here's how I'll put it. I chose to be on social media. They did not. That if they don't want to be shared on social media, they shouldn't be, especially when it comes to children. I have a big I'm very strong in my conviction that I would never post my niece or nephew because it's just a very scary world that we live in.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I just looked this up to verify, but it's called parasocial relationships.
Hmm.
And it's a one-sided relationship where you think that you know this person
Hmm.
because you've seen them online, you've experienced them on podcasts. It almost starts to feel like you're a friend with them. You see this with celebrities and other
Yes.
different personalities on social media. It's just a friendly reminder to people that you don't actually know these people. You
Hmm.
see a certain portion of their lives that they want you to see, and you're not entitled to anything beyond that. And I think for a lot of people, they feel entitled to more. Give me more. And it's just like, no, they're just a regular person like you. They just
Hmm.
chose to put some information out there, again, to help you, to guide you, to make you laugh, make you cry, whatever the emotion is or whatever they're selling. But you're not entitled to anything beyond that. And it's interesting to me as people get disappointed when they learn that, I don't know, they learn a ridiculous fact about the person that they were following. And then it's like, now I have to unfollow. And it's like, but do you? I don't know. It's just
I
very
know.
interesting to me
I
how that
know.
works because I look at people and I'm just like, is the content good? Is it
Hmm.
relatable? Is it helpful? Do I like it? How does it make me feel? And if I don't like the way that I feel, you're out. I'm not going to
Yep.
follow you. I might watch some of your content here and there as it
Hmm.
pops up in my feed, but I'm not going to follow you because I don't like it. And I think more
I
people
agree.
should do that with their following list. Yeah, I actually hate social media.
I think we all do for a bit. I
Yeah.
definitely have I definitely have my days with it where I'm like, I really just don't like social media. I'm not a very social person in my real life. I don't know why I chose to do social media, but it is fun because you do get to meet some really just great people. Very, again, like-minded people who challenge your belief system. And for the most part, I believe that most humans are good people at their core if you can get through that tough outer shell. But there are days when you're getting blown up by 13 to 18-year-olds who in your comment section who are sending you unaliving threats. You're like, oh, this isn't fun anymore.
Are open relationships a sign of emotional maturity or just an excuse to avoid commitment?
It is an excuse to avoid commitment, in my personal opinion.
Because it's a super popular topic
Yes.
right now as people get into this. What is your opinion on it?
I think that it is, I think it's a I think it's a fear of commitment. I genuinely do because I think that as humans, and this can be argued by a lot of different people, but I think as humans, we're always drawn to being monogamous and the monogamy lifestyle and wanting to always find love and always wanting to find a soul partner. And I think that there's no way, how do I word this? I just don't think that there's any possible way to fully showcase that you're loving somebody when you're also in a relationship with somebody else. So I'm not a fan of open relationships. I don't judge other people who are in open relationships. It would never be for me. And I don't think I could ever be in a relationship with somebody who was in an open relationship.
And that's my thing. And this is where boundaries come in and
Mhm.
understanding who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And I say that phrase like that every single time because I want it to sink into people's brains that it's like you have to know these things about yourself so that when you get presented with information that you don't like or that is uncomfortable, that you step back away from it and say, you know what, actually, I want to be in a monogamous relationship and I don't want to share the person that I want to be with for the next 50 years or more with someone else. And that's totally okay. So that's a boundary for me that I know about myself and I need to honor that. If I don't honor that, then I'm going to feel like I'm abandoning myself in that process just so you can have the life and relationship that you want to have.
Mhm.
That's not good for anybody. And that relationship is ultimately doomed if one person is holding back on that information, trying to please the other person in that instance. It ends up turning toxic.
Yes, entirely. I agree.
Oh, and people wonder, it's why is this so toxic? So you abandon yourself for the
Yeah.
good of someone else,
Yeah.
thinking that somehow you would get your needs met or get something from that situation, and
Mhm.
then you didn't get it. Is the idea of the one realistic, or does it set people up for disappointment in relationships?
Are you referring to having only finding that one person?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't believe that there's only one person meant for everybody. I think that you can have very successful, loving relationships with a variety of individuals. I don't think that I don't think that it should hold people back from finding the correct person for them. Because again, it's that mentality of, oh, is there somebody better out there? In my opinion. But see, I'm too wishy washy with these. So I'm very easily convinced.
Yeah.
But no, I don't believe in having the one. I don't. I think that if something were to happen and it doesn't work out in your current relationship, you can find somebody better. It just might not be as good as your previous relationship.
So John Kim, the angry therapist, in one of his books, he said, "The one is the one right in front of you."
Mm. Oh, yeah, that's a
And
good way to put that.
and I think that's so true because at different stages of your life, there's going to be people that resonate with who you are in that moment, and those are going to be the people that you choose. That's how we get to this place where all I ever date are avoidance, or all I ever date are this
Mhm.
particular type of person. It's because that's who you are currently that you energetically align with. So of course you're going to feel like that person is somebody that you're more connected to, and it's going to feel like that's the one. But as you grow, develop, evolve, and change, you begin to realize that you separate yourself from those old ideals and you become a completely different person in
Yes.
that process. So you might be dating somebody in your 20s and realize by the time you're 30 that this is no longer a good fit for a
Mhm.
relationship for you because you grew, you changed, you got a master's degree, and you went through different levels of your job in the corporate world or whatever that was for you. And then your partner just, they're still the same 20-year-old, even now you've aged 10 years later. And I think that's why lot of relationships also end up failing because we don't recognize that we're supposed to raise each other up as we go along
Yes.
to have that shared mission and vision. I don't think we put enough emphasis on that.
Yes. And working again, putting work and time into your relationship. People always want instant gratification, which I think just is a byproduct of having social media and having dating websites or those apps, because we always want it now, right now, without actually wanting to put the time and the effort in.
But for those who have experienced loss, I don't want to leave you hanging here because, again,
Yes.
at each stage of your life, there's always going to be several people that you're going to align with, that you're going to find
Yes.
attractive. There's always going to be somebody else. And
Mhm.
I know that makes people feel a certain way when I say it, but it's just, it's true because you're going to lose relationships. People are going to pass on
Mhm.
and your life doesn't stop just because those relationships have ended. Take the time, heal, put in the effort, seek help, seek support, live your life, have your Stella gets her groove back moment, go to the beach, enjoy yourself, figure out who you are as a person, and just recognize that when you're ready and you're ready to open yourself back up again, that there's going to be people that are going to be there available and waiting for you to be that person.
Yes.
So, Megan, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Thank you. You can find me over on TikTok at Meghan Elinor or Instagram. I don't post too often on Instagram though, but mostly TikTok.
What type of content are you going to be creating in the future? Like, what's your goal with social media overall?
I will be very honest. I don't have a long-term plan. I'm just going to keep posting my opinions or a little bit of lifestyle here and there. I think eventually I'll go back to YouTube. I just have to recommit to doing so because it's long form content. I do think will make its comeback at some point, but we'll see where the wind takes me.
I'm with you on that. It's been a challenge with creating long form content.
Mm.
I'm really good with the shorts. You give me 5 minutes and it's just like, cool, we're good. And then break down those 5 minute ones into the 60-second shorts is great. But to actually sit down for 15 minutes and sit there and just talk at the camera,
Mhm.
I just don't know that I have it in me. I love doing the podcast. I love talking to other people and having these types of conversations. What I think is
Mhm.
interesting is these don't go anywhere on YouTube for whatever reason. Um,
Yeah, I think it's also the attention span. People don't have the attention span that they used to have.
I don't know because then we say that, but then you see Joe Rogan who goes for 3 hours, Andrew Huberman goes for 3 hours, Lex Friedman, and all these other people have these very long conversations. And so I think it's like just getting in front of the right audience to
Mhm.
then pull those people in. But
Mhm.
I think YouTube for me has been challenging. One day this year, and I don't know why, there was no reason behind it. One post, they like put it into the algorithm god said, we're going to use this one and I got some new followers from that.
Wow, good. It's
Good
hard to it's hard to
for
keep up though.
good for that day. And
Yes.
then everything else I posted after that, a couple hundred views,
Mhm.
nothing really specific. A lot of people go to the shorts and they make some comments and that's really cool. But overall, it's just I can't get them to go to the podcast and watch it.
And watch it. Yeah, but I think that comes back to the Joe Rogans of the world have been doing this forever, and they got into YouTube and they got into the podcast space at the perfect time,
Oh
right
yeah.
before it really kicked off. So I think that's huge. That's why there's so many YouTubers who had successful careers in the 2010 periods, because that's when the algorithm was in their favor. So I think we're going to see a big comeback though to YouTube shortly, just because I think people are getting burned out from short form content because there's only so much that you can consume of the exact same content over and over again. I have a feeling it's probably going to come within the next couple of years.
I look forward to seeing some long form content from you then. See what you do with it.
Thank you so much.